Well, they did remove the Council of Nicaea from the original Bible. A lot of people haven't read those parts of the Bible.
You're saying there's a book called the Council of Nicaea?
Yeah.
There's not no book called the Council of Nicaea.
It's not a whole book, but there was a council called the Council of Nicaea that manipulated the original Bible.
What did they change?
I don't know.
Why are you talking about stuff that you haven't really looked into?
My point is that the Quran hasn't been manipulated by a council. It's been consistent the whole time. A lot of people haven't read Council of Nicaea. Council of Nicaea. Council of Nicaea. They did remove the Council of Nicaea. Council of Nicaea. Council of Nicaea. A lot of people haven't read it.
There's a book called the Council of Nicaea?
Yeah.
There's not no book called the Council of Nicaea.
It's not a whole book, but it's...
Sneako's complete ignorance about Christianity and Islam doesn't stop him from constantly talking about Christianity and Islam. On the contrary, his ignorance made him the perfect target for dawah. A dawah-gandist looks at Sneako the same way Andrew Tate looks at a beautiful girl on Instagram. Oh look, here's someone I can manipulate into joining my sex cult and helping me get more followers. Dawah is what jihadis do when they're too weak to fight. When they're not in a position to violently subjugate people, they lie to people in order to keep them in a state of ignorance until the jihadi community is strong enough to fight. The myth of one Quran has been spreading for a few decades now. For most of Islamic history, Muslims understood that there were different Qurans. But eventually, Muslim scholars and dawah-gandists realized that they could impress people by lying. Here's Sheikh Yasir Qadhi telling a popular audience that since the time of Caliph Uthman, no two copies of the Quran have ever differed in even a single word or letter.
So the Caliph Uthman standardized the copies of the Quran, and therefore from his time up until our time there has never been two copies of the Quran that are different even in one letter or one word.
Sheikh Yasir Qadhi definitely does not believe what he just said. How do I know that he doesn't believe what he just said? Because when he's speaking to people he calls students of knowledge, these are Muslims who are on the path to becoming scholars, he admits that there are different Qurans.
In other words, if you were to compare two printed Qurans, you're going to see differences between them.
But world-renowned Quran scholar Sneako says you're wrong, Sheikh.
And this is something that many people are unaware of and many people have heard but are not fully familiar with, especially those who have been exposed to some of our brothers who live in Algeria or Morocco or other North African countries. They recite the Quran in a slightly different way.
They recite the Quran differently? Are you simply referring to a different voice or speaking style?
Not just a voice or not just a speaking style, but also changes in letters and words and harakat.
Different letters and words? Here I thought that no two copies of the Quran differed in even a single letter or word. Where did I get that idea?
From his time up until our time, there has never been two copies of the Quran that are different even in one letter or one word.
Oh, that's just what Sheikh Yasir Qadhi says to people like Sneako. What does he say to students of knowledge again?
In other words, if you were to compare two printed Qurans, you're going to see differences between them. Changes in letters and words and harakat.
It's weird. It doesn't make sense to me to pray to a man. I don't want to submit to a man. The only person that we should submit to and pray to should be the one creator of the universe.
Whoa. He didn't want to submit to a man? The Quran literally commands him to submit to Muhammad. This is Surah 4, verse 65. Allah is talking to Muhammad. Allah says, "But no, by your Lord, they can have no faith until they make you, Muhammad, judge in all disputes between them and find in themselves no resistance against your decisions and accept them with full submission." Notice, Sneako just said, I don't want to submit to a man. Therefore, I'm converting to a religion that tells me to submit to Allah. Okay, how do you submit to Allah? By submitting to a man.